This album looks, at least to me, as an extension in some ways of the previous album where you started using samples. Is that a fair
Yeah. I think there's lots of people that are saying, oh, you've come with another very different album, but for me it's just a continuation.
Well, was it then that you, with the previous album, kind of found your path, so to say, with using samples and moving away from the more guitar-oriented?
I think what started to happen on the last record was that I've always had Bombay Bicycle Club, and then I've had music that I make just on my own and a solo project. And Bombay was always a guitar band, and my solo stuff was very electronic, completely electronic. And in the last record they started to combine, and now it's even more so. It's just combining the two elements of what I do.
Why did they start to combine at that point?
It was just natural, I think, that, you know, you were going to have elements of one and the other. The lines started to blur, I think.
I think it's the music everyone was interested in making at that time. After the first album, I think we were slightly less interested in making guitar music, and it was leaning towards that kind of songwriting, that style of songwriting.
Do you know why this not change but shift maybe in orientation?
I guess your tastes change and you make the album that you're interested in making. You wouldn't want to rehash the same thing for the sake of it.
Well, I read that Jack, you in an interview said that with the growing popularity also came a certain sense of pressure. Was this also there in this period of almost 3 years of making the record, or between the two records?
Probably a little bit, but just a healthy amount, I think, because you always need a bit of pressure, I think, when you're making music. But the good thing with us is that because our second album was acoustic and it was such a shock for people, that after that, like, what do people expect? It's like, it's just, we're open to do whatever we want now. Whereas if a band makes 3 albums of the same kind of stuff, maybe then there's a pressure to keep going. And we kind of have a freedom almost, because no one knows what to expect, I don't think.
Is this also, does it spring from the label you're on that allows you this much freedom?
Yeah, I think it was releasing Flaws that gave us the amount of freedom we had. I think everyone was slightly apprehensive before releasing that, because there was a chance it could alienate all the fans we had, and it didn't. So from that point onwards, they trusted us and kind of let us be.
Okay. Was this important when you first started out and looked for a label, or?
Actually, we made the first album without a label. Okay. We recorded it and then we signed. So with that one, there was a very small amount of outside interference. But it's really the album we wanted to make as well.
Okay. Well, about this record, Jack, you said that you were searching for a balance between intellectualism and
accessibility?
Well, yeah, I thought I had a different word in my mind, but yeah, accessibility. Can you elaborate on this?
So, I think you want the music you make to be interesting, and I want to always experiment with what I'm doing, with different ways of producing or different instruments, or in some way just experimenting. But the word experimental has all these connotations to people, and they think, you know, it has to be 20-minute long ambient drone music that people just sit there listening to when they're really stoned. And I hate that kind of music. So I want it to be interesting, but also I want it to be pop music, and people should be able to instantly react to it, physically, mentally, and everything.
Well, what part then becomes the intellectual side? Is that what you look for in the music, or more the lyrics?
No, it's just I'm just talking about music. Okay. Yeah, not the lyrics. I don't want the lyrics to be intellectual. So. I mean, like, maybe some of the chord patterns or some of the melodies. It's difficult to explain, but you want them to be really simple because that's easy to sing along to. But you don't want it to be like the lowest common denominator type of music.
I think Carry Me is quite a basic example of that. You have, they're quite accessible melodies in the song, and it is a pop song at its heart, but within that there are some things that you wouldn't necessarily find in pop music. You know, there are some interesting rhythms there, the polyrhythms, and there's the production is quite obscure compared to the music you would find on like Radio 1 or anything like that.
And I suppose then this is where the looping and the use of samples comes in to make it different than standard pop.
Yeah, I mean it adds an interesting layer to it, definitely.
Well, I wrote something down as well about you said about the looping. Essentially, it's a series of beautiful melodies built around clever loops, all in one giant loop.
Right. That's the album.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can you explain that? I noticed the first song starts with a melody and the last song ends with it. But
it's good someone noticed that. Ooh, I was kind of worried.
Yeah. So that's the one big loop.
Sorry.
That comes from our desire for. You know, you want people to listen to an album the whole way through, and it's getting rarer and rarer these days. And so when you do something like that, it's acknowledging that you appreciate people that do that, and that was how you would listen to it. And it's kind of cheesy, but the people that, it's like a reward for people that have listened the whole way through, if they understand that it's cyclical, you know.
Well, as you say, maybe the time of a true album has gone, because nowadays it's more about independent songs. So why, as you mentioned, is it to you really important that it is actually one cohesive album?
That's just how we like to make music, I think. You can write loads of good songs and then just throw them at people, but we like to take time and care into building something that's cohesive.
It's one piece, it's one finished piece, and each song plays a part in that. It's all thought out as to where they go in the album and which follows on from the next, you know. It would be a shame if people only chose to listen to a part of that.
Was there then a central theme to the album, or a certain recurring element that goes through the entire album, or?
I think stuff like that is best for people to decide themselves, you know. I never really talk about the meaning of the lyrics or anything, because it's unfair for me to just say this is the only way you can interpret it. So I think for us, it's the idea of the looping and all that stuff that's the theme of the album.
It's a very vague theme, but the whole album is a loop, and again, as you said before, there's lots of little loops inside.
And the artwork is like a loop, and the video is a loop.
Yeah, who came up with? Who came up with the idea for the video for Carry Me?
We wrote a very vague brief, again saying that we had a vague theme of, you know, loops within the album, and we were looking at the work of Edward Muybridge, who's I think a 19th century photographer who pioneered stop motion photography. And these guys came back with this treatment that we had to go with. They've just developed this technology and it completely fit in with what we were doing.
And I read that you are, either you already have or you're about to shoot the video for Feel in India. Is this going to be along the same lines of a stop motion thing? Or?
No, it's going to be completely removed from that.
It's going to be very cheesy. Just big dance routine.
Bollywood?
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea was to find someone who worked in Bollywood and give them the song and let them do whatever they wanted with it. So it exists within that world entirely with no prompting from us. And it will be like a self-contained piece.
Okay. Well, just to go back briefly to the lyrics, I've read somewhere that, Jack, you said about lyrics that you always, the only thing you can write about is relationships. Mm-hmm. Is this still true?
Yeah, that's never going to change.
And do you use Well, are these songs autobiographical, where they directly are about certain people?
Yeah. But you don't want it to be so specific that people can't relate to it. So you start off by thinking of something that's happened or a person that you want to write about, but then from then on you try and make it slightly vague. And you want to just... I feel like if something's happened to you and you can write down that image that you had in your head, but hopefully it's something that everyone's experienced as well. Mm-hmm. And that's like the perfect lyric, I think.
And do these people that you write about, do they know that
Absolutely
the song is about?
No. Some of them do.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll tell them, but I shouldn't really.
Have they? Well, why not?
Well, it's just awkward, I think.
Have they told you what they thought about it when they knew a certain song was about them?
I think, no, I don't know how they feel.
But you never...
Embarrassed, probably.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.